So, what does it actually cost to live in London? Is it really expensive here? Hi guys, we are back with another sit-down vlog. For today's video, I'm going to cover the realistic monthly expenses of a 30-something living in the city of London. I've recorded every single transaction that I made during the month. I'll show you a breakdown of spending in two parts. First, my personal spending, and then second, the common expenses that we have as a couple. The portion of the budget that goes to food, transportation, utilities, travel and recreation, and other monthly outgoings. Hi everyone, if you are new to this channel, we are Kai and Ses. We recently created this YouTube channel to create videos of our journey and our life in London. So we've relocated from Metro Manila, Philippines, and we're now here in London for over a year now. So we're both working in the field of banking and finance. We share info, tips, our first-hand experiences as we navigate our new life here, as well as our trips within and outside the UK. In the next vlogs or in the future vlogs, we'll share our trips to Europe and Asia, and of course, our trips back home to the Philippines. So if you're planning to move to London or have plans in the future or just plain curious about the cost of living here, then you're in the right channel. We hope this will give you an idea of what it is to live in London right now, at least in the financial aspect. Okay, before we start, there are things to consider. Cost of living would differ based on your profile or circumstance. Spending would be different for a professional or a student, or say someone who is single compared to a married person who has kids. It would also differ based on your lifestyle, your preferences and priorities in life. So also note that since there is a cost of living crisis and the inflation is happening in different parts of the world, prices fluctuate from time to time. So keep up to date with our vlogs on what we spend in a day to get an accurate picture of the current cost of living. Okay, so here's a list of every single transaction we've made for a month. I do keep an Excel spreadsheet to track my personal spending and for common expenses to better understand and manage our finances. So I don't use any apps because I prefer this way of tracking. So I keep separate tabs for personal and common expenses. I classify each expense according to behavior. If it's fixed, like if it's an obligation that needs to be paid for the month, or variable if it's discretionary or something that we can control. So next is I break it into major categories like this, and then further break it down to a more specific subcategory. So the way we do our monthly budgeting as a couple is that we pool a fund that will cover our fixed expenses that exclude rent, and our variable expenses, which is mostly groceries or like eat outs, cinema, leisure and other activities. So we don't work to pay bills, right? So yeah, in our case, we give a £500 each month. So we have a monthly common fund of 1,000. I do log our expenses on a weekly basis so that I have a view of the running expenses and how much cash we still have. Okay, let's start with the common expenses. I'll go with the variable ones first. I'll start with the most frequent transaction that we have, which is food. And these are primarily just groceries. So the way we do grocery is that we have a one big purchase online. So that covers pantry, snacks, and toiletries for 2 to 3 weeks. So I've included toiletries and household aids already here because I don't want a separate calculation for that. So we do top ups every week or so for wet goods. That's mainly from Tesco, the Asian grocery downstairs, Waitrose, and Lidl. So that's the closer grocery shops here are Tesco and Waitrose. We do purchase in Lidl, but that's a one bus trip away, so we don't have Lidl this month. And yeah, I think you can still bring this down. It's just that Waitrose is on the upscale ones. But if you have Asta or Lidl or Aldi in your place, and that's better because they tend to have cheaper prices. But sometimes, based from our observations, um, sometimes Waitrose and M&S cost just the same or a little lower, and they do have good quality. So next would be, let's go to recreation. For the recreation ones, these are mostly expenses on eat outs, meeting friends, takeaways, milk tea, or the food bought at a concert or a movie. So we do eat out at least once a week. It depends on the weather, and it's more often if we meet friends. So next would be, let's go to health. So these are just vitamins, common vitamins and medicines that we have. Okay, next variable expense would be utilities. So some of the bills here are paid through auto debit or a standing order in our bank accounts because the amount is fixed. Just like for the internet connection, this is fixed on a monthly basis. The rest are paid online. And then this one is heating. So in the UK, you pay separately for your heating. It's not included in the electric bill, so that covers your room heaters, just the one at the back, and the water heaters, both for toilet and for the sink, for the kitchen rather. So our usual bill is around this figure. So of course, take into account that your heating cost may be higher during colder months. This doesn't change much for us because we've never used our heaters. Since this flat is well insulated, it's a new build, so that saves us on some heating and electricity cost. And then I'll go to this one. This is the water bill. So this comes every 5 to 6 months. Our recent bill came last month, so this is already divided into 6 months. And then electricity. This is our usual usage. It's billed during spring, so your usage might also change depending on the season. If it's autumn or winter, that's colder months. Okay, I think I've covered everything variable, so let's jump on. Oh, hang on. I've put in fixed for the utilities here. It's fixed in the way that we pay this monthly. It's just that the rates are not fixed. So yeah. So the next one would be housing. So this is the rent and the council tax. So definitely this is our biggest expense. We're living in a 1-bedroom flat in zone 2 that's close to transportation links, which probably explains high rate. So this is not included in the monthly common fund though. I've included this just to give you an idea of the portion of the monthly spending that goes to rent. So if you haven't watched our flat hunting vlog, we've included there the tips, prices, tours that we've made when we just started here in London, and the things that you should consider when looking for a flat, especially if you're planning to move or have recently moved to London. So I'll include the description, I'll include the link in the description box below. Oh, sorry, for miscellaneous, these are all other things that cannot be classified in other categories. So I just put it here. So these are mostly gifts or whatever expense we encounter along the way. Okay, I'll be skipping on transportation because we do account for that separately since Sky works in zone 1 and I don't spend much on transport costs since I just walk to work and the groceries are just nearby my office place and near where we live, so I'll skip on that. And of course we use public transportation here, so your cost might differ. If you do drive, you'll have to pay for petrol, insurance, maintenance, parking, and so on. So I'll also be skipping on some of the personal expenditures because I'll be discussing that later on my personal expenses. So here's our total common expenses for the month, which is around £3,000. Again, personal expenses are excluded here. Note that what you're seeing is shared expenditures for just two people. We don't have kids or pets, and as you can see, the biggest chunk is on rent, which accounts for 75 of our total expense for the entire month. Next would be food, which is mainly groceries, and then recreation, just dining out, entertainment activities at 241. Then utilities at 137 pounds per month. It's just 5% of the total expenses for the month, and then the rest are just small ones. Okay, to complete the picture of what a 30-something spends in London, let's add in all those personal transactions that I made. So that includes number one, food. So I do work from home twice a week and 3 days in the office. So mostly my expense would be coming from lunch and coffee spot on office days. And then for transportation, I'll jump on that. It's just very minimal because, as I mentioned earlier, we use public transportation. So your transport expense will generally be based on your point of origin to your destination, as well as your time of travel, if it's a peak period or non-peak period. So in our flat hunting vlog, I've explained the London zoning system, which is basically fare is higher if you're coming from farther zones going to the city center, which is practically zone 1. So there's a capping system wherein if you've reached a certain spending for a certain zone for that day, you won't be charged of the succeeding trips. So if you can see, I have low spending in here. I just walk to work. It's mostly just weekend expense or weekend trips to the city. So if I were to compare it to the Philippines, I have a relatively low transport expense here because back home I do spend petrol or gas and parking, as well as maintenance of my car. So now, well, rent is higher here, but my transport cost is cheaper. Let's move on to the next item, which is recreation. So this is mostly a concert ticket and a random eat out or pint. This is an eat out separately with my own friends and colleagues. Next one would be for personal care. It's just mostly personal grooming or skincare products. Haircut. I did not have any haircut during this month, but I do have my hair trimming once every 2 months. That's at 30 quid. So yeah, and then dental expenses. So I don't have dental related expenses for now. Let's go to miscellaneous. So these are mostly others gifts, other one-off purchases that I had during that month. And if they do buy some clothing, which I don't really do, it goes here. For the variable one would be, let's go to travel. That's very variable. So this is airfare. This is just a one-off expense. I think this is one of my biggest expense after the rent for a flight booked 2 months in advance to the Philippines. So this price can go lower if you plan ahead. Let's go on to the fixed expenses that I have, which is utilities and subscriptions. So for the utilities, I just use a pay-as-you-go SIM, which includes calls, SMS, and mobile data. And for the subscriptions, the way we do subscriptions is that we pay it separately. So Kai pays for the TV and shopping subscriptions. I do pay for music and for the editing apps. We don't have any gym memberships because the property or the flat that we're living in has a gym downstairs, so that saves us money. Okay, let's go to the summary. My biggest expense would be the personal one, excluding rent, would be travel. Definitely a one-off, but I do have travel for the month. Next would be miscellaneous. I've shown this earlier, these are mostly one-off expense, one-off purchases. And then food and recreation is just very minimal and almost the same. So if I do have a combination of this expense with my share from the common fund, so that would include housing already, the biggest expense that I have would be travel and housing. The rest are, as I said, just minimal. So if we remove the travel from here, for example, that would give me rent as my biggest expense, which will account for 59% or 60% of my monthly expenses to be just housing. So this is my monthly spending. So these are the expenses that we pay, and this excludes any monthly obligations that we still pay in the Philippines, and the money, of course, that we send to our families back there. If you're planning to move to London, I hope this gives you an idea of the cost of living here. Or if you guys are here already, let me know what you think. Do you spend more like this or less? And if you have any questions of what it is like living here, or you have types of content that you want to see, just let us know in the comment box below and we'll read it. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next sit down vlog.